Gardener is an upcoming simulation game from developer Wojciech Gorny, also known as coxna.com, and published by Freemind Games. Plant and maintain accurately simulated gardens made of your own procedurally generated plants grown with artificial selection genetics and authentic gardening techniques. Learn the art of restoration, design, pest management, pruning, and more to become a master gardener. Gardener will be out sometime in 2024, but today we are exploring the Plant Creator tool that has been released for free on Steam so that eager gardeners everywhere can prep their seedlings for launch. Now, it is an unlock where you gain new genes every day you open the game, and you can also get genes from these crystals once in a while. Now that I've unlocked all of the genes, let's get down to some plant creation. Here's the default rows, and we're going to create something similar while going through all of the options. Our first menu shows us the different stem types. We have 16 to choose from, ranging from thinner, thornier ones to thicker, more woody stems for things like shrubs and trees. So I'm going to choose a thornier one since we are creating a rose, and then we can take a look at some leaf options. There are quite a few of them, lots of selection. Some more linear, others not. We have smooth edges, serrated edges, lobed edges, and a few choices of simple versus compound leaves. I'm surprised we don't have anything that resembles a needle for coniferous trees, but there is another option later on that I think could make this happen. As you can see, every time I click a leaf, it updates it in the viewer, which is super nice for visualization. We're going to go with a simple serrated leaf for our plant. The final menu is fruits and flowers. You can choose to have no fruit at all with the X as the first option, or you have a full menu that even scrolls further down of various fruit shapes. We have a more typical apple shape and some berry clusters, but also some well-known flower shapes like hydrangea blossoms, tulip heads, echinacea or coneflower, and so many more. The texture of these is super fun. There are some fluffy looking flowers that I can't wait to use later. For now, we'll use the default one we started with. Sliding over to the wrench menu, we have many more options for customization. First, the stem. The branching factor and layers we'll take a look at a bit later as they don't do anything at this stage, but for branching stages we can decide how many nodes we'll get along the stem. This is where the leaves will grow out of. So as you can see, the larger the number, the more leaves we get. Branching layers still does nothing as of right now, but with the slider we can change the branch length, so the distance between each set of leaves, the branch width, so how thick these branches are, which will be useful for shrubs and trees, branch tilt, or how vertical versus horizontal the branches will be, as well as the inheritable scaling, which will make a bigger change later on as well. In our leaf menu, we can change the number of leaves coming out of each grouping anywhere from primary to quinary. As you can see, tertiary gives us 3 leaves coming out of the same spot, while quaternary gives us 4, and so on. We can also change the leaf size, which is pretty self-explanatory. Some goofy looking plants likely headed your way. Our leaf length will adjust the stretch, which I think could be a method towards creating needles. Leaf height will adjust the positioning of the leaves along the stem. Leaf tilt the verticality. Leaf convex, how open or closed the leaves are along the short edge. And leaf concave, how open or closed the leaves are along the long edge, or how droopy they end up looking. Our fruit menu features some of those same sliders at the bottom, but for the fruit rather than the leaves, as well as similar factors such as the number of fruit growing out of each node, the fruit size, and other factors like fat and sugar content and vital effect. These will be more important with the release of the game and will likely affect financial aspects of your garden, especially if you want to build an orchard, for example, and sell your fruits. However, they can also attract wildlife, I believe, so keep your eyes peeled. Finally, we have our growth menu. I'll quickly time-lapse through the plant's growth to show you the annual progression. Annuals are flowers that are planted once and they die off in the winter months. Perennials, however, will have multiple growing cycles. As you can see here, the plant blooms once, drops its leaves, and then blooms once more. I assume that each progression of perennial just gives it another season cycle, also making it taller. So now we can go back to our stem menu and see how branching factors and layers affect this plant. Since perennials come back a few years in a row, new growth can build on old branches. From my understanding, and this could be completely wrong, it looks like branching factors give us a split from the main stem, and the branching layers provide a fuller plant the higher the multiplier. You can see how the plant changes with the various options as I click around. These will be very useful for achieving different branching patterns later on. For our purposes, we're going to make this an annual that only flowers once. A relatively small plant with a good number of leaves, and once I'm happy with that, we can jump over to the final paintbrush menu. Our color selector lets us paint each part of the plant individually: the stem, the leaves, and the fruit. It's hard to see the stem on this one since it's so thin, but I'm going to make it a nice dark green color. Clicking around to see if I can make any changes, but this one's unfortunately just hard to see. The leaves all just show a few color variations since the change will be more noticeable. But I settle on a slightly brighter green from the stem, and the fruit is the most apparent of all. We can make it any color we want, from natural to unnatural. And even though I do like pink, red roses are my favorite, so we'll make it red. And there we go, we've created our first plant in the plant creator. Just look at this meadow full of them. We'll save it using the big check mark in the bottom right. You can choose to save a plant with the floppy disk in the top right as well. And then there are a few other options I want to show you before we get down to creating more plants. There are a few lighting choices, including what appears to be morning or dawn, midday, and a dusk lighting. That one is probably my favorite. It is absolutely gorgeous. The cloud icon underneath is to upload your creation to the Steam Workshop. This middle button exports the time-lapse of your plant's growth into a GIF animation. And the final camera button takes a screenshot. You can also close the panel to get a full screen view of your design. I should also mention that all of the music you're hearing in this video is from game as well, so if you're enjoying, remember to hit the like button. Alright, let's build a few more plants. For this next one, I wanted to use a woodier stem and a broader leaf for a more shrub-like feel. The berry piece caught my eye, and after increasing the number of berries and the size of them, the design I had in mind started coming together. Had to play around with a few of these options still because I wasn't quite understanding how they worked, but the goal was to have a relatively short, compact bush with lots of berries, and I did finally achieve that. This one I'll recolor to more burgundy reddish tones. I love plants with a dark color palette, so I settled on some bright red berries and this maroon tone for the leaves. Look, we have our first visitor. A deer has wandered into our garden. Moving on to our next plant, I wanted to try my hand at a tree. Thicker stem, big leaves, but oh my gosh, the fruit had no reason to be this big and looked rather silly. To fix this, I made sure each fruit was growing solo and was small in size before turning to the leaf menu to make our plant nice and full. You can also see a cute little rabbit in the background. For the first time, you can also see these sliders in the fruit menu. I tilted the apples down so they appeared to be hanging from the branches. And then it was a matter of figuring out how to make the plant taller. The answer is in the last menu with the sliders at the bottom for base plant height. After that, I hit a bit of a decision paralysis because while I love that there's so many options for customization, it's also a bit overwhelming at first. I couldn't decide if I wanted the tree to be more compact or more spread out. This time-lapse shows the difference between the tight versus exploded view very well. Once I had a shape I was happy with, this tree will end up with an orangey trunk, green leaves, and slightly pinkish apples. As it grows, you can see it gets taller over time and also produces more leaves and fruit with each growing season. For a third plant, I went back to the idea of shrubs, but this time a flowering shrub. I wanted to use some of these fluffier flowers and some more concentrated colors, since flowering shrubs are usually brighter than many other plants. This one was very much inspired by the longer leaves and colorful flowers of rhododendrons and azaleas. Adjusted the leaves to droop towards the ground a bit, and tried to get a shape that didn't seem too repetitive while still hiding the stem on the inside. And while I'm here, I might as well try out some funky color combos. Time to create an alien plant. With these big serrated leaves, peace lily-like flowers that point straight up out of the canopy, and a thick horsetail-like trunk, this is not a plant you'll find anywhere on our planet. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was really interesting to try and create something that doesn't look like anything that actually exists, but still looks decent. Again, playing with the branching options quite a bit. I would say this is the hardest part of the creator to get your head around, but the visualizer is great for seeing all of those options. And for colors, we'll make this otherworldly, some icy blues and deep teals to give it more of an alien feel. Wasn't sure if I loved the trunk, but hey, it looked the most alien out of them all, so we'll keep it. Another discovery. You can prune your plants by clicking on leaves and branches, but don't worry, it'll grow back in a flash. Now our final speed build, something kind of like a hydrangea bush because they are some of my favorites. These flowers looked nice and fluffy, but a little bit too big, and there was definitely too many of them. Hopefully you can see as I continue clicking through options how the plant changes. The procedural generation network here is absolutely fantastic. I have loved getting to check this out and nerd out over plants. I will definitely be building some more in preparation for the release of Gardener sometime this year. And if you enjoyed this, why not try your own hand at some plant creation with the free Gardener Plant Creator on Steam. I'll put the link in the description below. Thank you to Coxnet and Freemind Games for reaching out with a key for me to review this game. This was a blast and I can't wait to see the finished product. Some final looks at the plants we put together today, and I will see you next time. Bye.